You think someone like you has $1 million just sitting in an account here? Prove it, or get out. The branch manager's voice rang across the marble-floored lobby, loud enough for every customer in the bank to turn and stare. A man in a plain white t-shirt and faded jeans stood still, holding his ID and bank card in one hand, calm, but silent. His shoulders didn't move, his jaw didn't clench, but something in his eyes shifted. In exactly 7 minutes, every employee inside that Apex Bank branch would be fired, and none of them had the faintest idea that the man they just humiliated was their boss. Before we step into the full story, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. We want to hear from you. And if this story moves you even a little, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's head inside the Apex Bank branch at 1420 Fifth Avenue in downtown Seattle, where bias, arrogance, and power collided on a quiet Thursday morning at 10 a.m. The man standing at the counter was Marcus Tate, 45 years old. You wouldn't have known by his clothes, but he was the CEO of Apex Financial Group, the very company that owned this bank. He was worth over $15 billion, but that morning, he didn't walk in wearing a tailored suit or Italian loafers. No bodyguards, no assistants, just a man dressed like anyone else on the street, because Marcus was there undercover. For weeks, his office had been receiving anonymous complaints on Reddit and X, stories of minority customers being mistreated, interrogated, even accused of fraud at this very branch. Marcus didn't believe in corporate investigations from afar. He believed in seeing the truth with his own eyes. And now, the truth was staring back at him, full of contempt and disbelief. "I'm here to make a withdrawal," Marcus said calmly, sliding his card across the glass counter. $1 million. Wire transfer. The room fell quiet. Branch manager Pamela Reed, 50 years old, arched an eyebrow and didn't touch the card. She looked him up and down. "$1 million?" she repeated, a smirk curling at the edge of her mouth. "In that outfit?" Her tone wasn't curious, it was cruel. Marcus didn't blink. He simply nodded. "Yes, from my Apex account." That's when teller Ryan Holt, 32, chimed in through the intercom speaker, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. "Sir, we'll need to re-verify your identity. Check your ID again. We've had scammers dressed like that before." Laughter bubbled up near the back of the line. Marcus's heart didn't race. His voice didn't rise. But inside, a slow flame was building. "My ID is valid," he said. "So is my account." Ryan didn't even bother glancing at the screen. "You'll need to provide proof of funds," he said smugly, "and maybe change your story." Pamela crossed her arms. "Unless you're here to cause trouble." Then it got worse. Teller Sarah Klein, 28, leaned forward, grabbed Marcus's card, and, without checking, slid it into her drawer and locked it with a click. "This card looks suspicious," she said. "Honestly, you probably stole it. You need to leave." The statement landed like a slap in the face, not just to Marcus, but to everyone watching. One woman gasped. A man near the potted plants whispered, "Did she really just say that?" And from the side of the room, a phone lifted. Olivia Grant, 29, a white marketing consultant and regular customer, had heard enough. She tapped record. "This is racism at Apex Bank," she said, loud and clear. "And it's going online." She uploaded the clip to X without hashtags, but the words were enough. Ethan Cole, a 33-year-old journalist standing behind her, joined in, pulling out his phone. "Get his name," Olivia told him. "We're documenting everything." Meanwhile, a young teller named Mia Brooks, 25, was frozen in disbelief. She had worked at the branch for 2 years, always under Pamela's stern management. But this was different. "He has every right to be here," Mia said softly. Pamela glared at her. You're not paid to argue. Mia stepped forward anyway. I am paid to follow policy, and you're breaking it. The room tensed. Sarah sneered at Mia. You don't know who this guy is. He's trying to scam us. Marcus turned slowly to look at Sarah, then at Pamela, then back to the drawer where his card was now trapped. You're ruining Apex, he said quietly. This isn't about me. It's about you. Flashback. 20 years ago. Marcus was 25 and fresh out of grad school when he walked into a small bank in Texas, hoping to withdraw a down payment for his first investment property. He wore jeans. He had an honest smile. But the teller didn't see potential. Only a young black man dressed like a thug. They told him the funds were under investigation. He had to return with a suit and a lawyer before they took him seriously. That moment never left him. It planted a seed, a fire to create a financial institution where no one would ever be treated like he was that day. And now, here he stood, in his own bank, facing the same rot he thought he'd removed. Back in the lobby, Pamela pressed a button under the desk, logging a silent note in the system. Possible fraud? Escalate? She turned to Ryan. Call it in if he doesn't leave. Ryan's voice shook the room again. Final warning. Sir, leave now, or we escalate to law enforcement. Marcus didn't move. Instead, he pulled out his phone, not to record, but to dial. Lena, he said, when his assistant answered. Activate the internal system. On the other end, Lena's voice came through clear. It's live. We're monitoring everything. Say the word. Marcus didn't say the word. Not yet. Mia stepped forward again, blocking Sarah from the drawer. You locked his card without justification, she said. You could lose your job for this. Sarah rolled her eyes. I'm not worried, Pamela snapped. Enough! You're embarrassing yourself. Mia! Ethan caught that too. On video. She's protecting the customer, he said. And you're violating your own code of conduct. More customers began murmuring. Tension thickened. One man said aloud. Is this how you treat all black men in jeans? Pamela responded without hesitation. We treat suspicious behavior the same, no matter the color. Marcus's face was still calm, but his fingers curled slightly into a fist. You'll regret this, Pamela, he said evenly. All of you will. And then came the small twist. Ethan leaned over and tugged the drawer slightly open before Sarah slammed it shut again, but not before he read the name on the bank card. Loud enough for the room to hear. Marcus Tate, he said. This card says Marcus Tate. There was a pause, and then a sharp intake of breath. Someone whispered. Wait, that Marcus Tate? Marcus stood taller now, just a little. He didn't reveal who he was. Not yet. But the room had shifted. The tension was no longer on him. It was turning. Slowly. And Pamela felt it. The silence that followed Ethan's reading of the name Marcus Tate didn't last long. Pamela's eyes flickered, just for a second. But it was enough for anyone paying attention to notice a shift, doubt, fear, or perhaps recognition, though she hid it quickly beneath a layer of growing hostility. She turned to Sarah and hissed, Lock the drawer. Don't let anyone near that card again. Sarah, emboldened by the chaos, pressed her palm to the top of the drawer like it held national secrets. This card's suspicious, she snapped again, eyes darting toward Mia. And so is he. We asked him to leave. That's final. Then, her voice rose, sharp and cutting through the lobby. You heard me, sir. Leave now. The word sir was laced with sarcasm. Ryan didn't hesitate this time. He stepped around the counter, his hand gripping Marcus's elbow tightly. Let's not make this harder than it has to be, he said through clenched teeth. This isn't a place for you to act out. Time to go. Customers began gasping. Some stepped back, unsure whether a fight was brewing, while others stepped forward, offended at what they were witnessing. "He's a client," one man shouted, pulling out his phone. "You can't put hands on him!" But Ryan, fueled by Pamela's silent nod, kept his grip. "You don't belong here," Sarah muttered under her breath, just loud enough for Marcus to hear. That did it. The final spark. "Let go of me," Marcus said, calm but thunderous. "Now!" At the same moment, Mia shoved her way between Ryan and Marcus. "You can't touch him," she cried, voice cracking with emotion. "His account is valid. You haven't even looked at the screen." Ryan's face reddened as if being challenged by a junior teller added insult to injury. "This isn't your call. Mia!" Pamela snapped. "He's a fraud. You'll find that out soon enough." And then, an explosion from the far side of the lobby. "This is injustice!" shouted Ethan, now live streaming to Reddit. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. "They're physically removing a customer with no evidence. This is racism on full display at Apex Bank." The live stream picked up gasps, overlapping voices, even the squeak of shoes as more customers stepped in to block Ryan's path. Olivia added in, "The whole country's going to see this." A woman in a blue dress near the door muttered, "This is exactly what happened to my brother." The temperature of the room had changed. The story was no longer confined to marble floors and glass partitions. It was bleeding into the world beyond, through screens and cameras and shared outrage. Flashback. Marcus, age 15. He had walked into a small local branch with his grandmother's savings bond in hand. The teller looked at his dark skin and oversized hoodie, then asked if he was running an errand for someone. When he said no, that it was his grandmother's. The teller called over a manager to verify. They never cashed the bond. His grandmother had to come in herself, even though her name and signature were on the certificate. That humiliation burned into his memory, the sting of being questioned, dismissed, invalidated. And now, all these years later, the same flavor of doubt was being served to him, only this time, in a bank he owned, back in the present. Marcus didn't resist, but he didn't move either. "I came to withdraw my money," he said. "You've now accused me of theft, taken my card, and put hands on me. This will not go unanswered." Pamela rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. You're a threat, and we're following protocol." "Protocol?" Mia snapped. "No, you're abusing power." Pamela leaned toward her and lowered her voice to a whisper meant only for Mia. "I warned you once. Keep this up and you're next." Mia blinked, stunned. Then her expression changed, like something inside her had cracked wide open. "I've seen you do this before," she said aloud, her voice no longer trembling. "Last year, a black customer asked to speak with a loan officer. You made him wait an hour, then denied him without checking his file." That made Pamela flinch. For the first time. Her mouth didn't move. Olivia stepped closer. "Wait, you've had complaints before?" Mia nodded. "And she buried them." Customers began murmuring louder. One older man said, "You people think you can do anything behind a title," another woman added. "My dad's account was frozen here last month without cause." And then Ethan, still streaming, spoke directly into his phone. "For anyone watching, this isn't an isolated case. This is systemic, and this branch is a problem." Marcus, hearing that, turned slightly to face the room. Not as a CEO, not yet, but as someone who had lived the experience too many times. "They think they're untouchable," he said, not to Pamela, but to the people watching. "They believe appearance equals legitimacy. They've mistaken arrogance for authority." At that moment, Lena's voice came through the phone in Marcus's pocket, quiet but steady. "Internal system is live. Marcus, we're capturing audio and customer testimony. You have full authorization." He didn't answer aloud. Instead, he looked at Sarah. "Return my card." Sarah froze. "No. Return it, he said again. Eyes hard now, no longer soft-spoken. You've made your point? You've crossed every line? She shook her head. We're not done here. Olivia pointed a finger at her. You should be. You're being recorded right now, Ethan added. Reddit's watching. Thousands are tuning in. You're going viral. Pamela looked panicked for just a moment, then snapped. Everyone put your phones away. But no one listened. Instead, the crowd grew bolder, one woman said. You owe him an apology, another man asked. Where's corporate? Pamela barked. We are corporate. Marcus smiled faintly. Not for long. Ryan, still standing beside him, hesitated. This is going too far, he muttered to Pamela. We can't keep pushing this. But Pamela ignored him, raising her voice again. This man is not who he says he is. That was when the medium twist struck. Mia stepped forward, trembling but brave, and pulled up the system on her side screen. I looked him up, she said, voice loud and clear. His account is real, and it's massive. He's not just a client, he's a top-tier executive account holder. Silence. Pamela's mouth dropped slightly. Ryan stared at the floor. Sarah's face went pale. Olivia let out a breathless, "Oh my God!" And then Marcus spoke again, still holding his phone in his hand. You're going to regret this. Not because of who I am, but because of who you've chosen to be. And now, I want to ask you, if you had been standing in that lobby, hearing Marcus being called a fraud, being shoved out, having his identity stripped away, what would you have done? Would you have spoken up? Would you have stood between him and the door? Let us know in the comments. Your voice is powerful, and the story's only just beginning. Security code red, Pamela barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a whip. Even though no security officer existed in that branch, it was a bluff, a final scare tactic to push Marcus out. Remove him now, she screamed. Eyes locked on Ryan, but Ryan's hesitation was showing in his shoulders. Still, he obeyed. He lunged forward again and shoved Marcus hard in the chest, forcing him back toward the glass doors. He's a fraud, Sarah shouted through the intercom speaker, her voice booming through the entire lobby like a public announcement. This man is impersonating a client. Do not assist him. Customers froze, horrified. One elderly woman stepped away from the teller line and clutched her purse. What is happening here? She whispered to no one. Marcus stumbled backward one step, just one, and steadied himself. He didn't yell. He didn't lash out. He just raised his eyes toward the intercom speaker and exhaled slowly, as if steadying the volcano inside him. Don't do this, Mia said to Pamela, stepping in front of Marcus. You've gone too far. That announcement was slander. But Pamela didn't care. Her voice had risen to a fever pitch. I run this branch. Not some man off the street pretending he owns an account. We don't serve people like him. At that moment, the final fuse was lit. Olivia, visibly shaking with rage, shouted from behind her camera. That's enough. You just told the whole room he doesn't belong. On what grounds? His skin? His clothes? Ethan, still live streaming to Reddit, panned his phone across the room. This is a banking hate crime happening live in downtown Seattle. Share this. Save this. Customers in the background began to murmur again. Angrily now. A young Latino man stepped forward and said, I've been treated the same way at this bank. This is no accident. The room grew tense with shared electricity. Pamela, seeing the shift, tried to redirect the narrative. He's being aggressive, she snapped. Physically confrontational. But the customers weren't buying it anymore. No, you're confrontational, said a woman near the exit. You're shouting through a mic while a grown man stands there being humiliated. We see it. Flashback. Marcus at 30. He had just closed a major funding deal and entered a bank to open a business line of credit. Dressed well, speaking confidently, still. The bank manager asked him 3 times if he was authorized to use the account, despite his name being on every page of the corporate paperwork. "I just need to verify you're not fronting for someone," the manager had said. That coded language had haunted him. It reminded Marcus that no amount of success would insulate him from the assumptions underneath the surface. That same doubt was echoing again now, this time over loudspeakers. Back in the lobby, Marcus's voice was no longer calm. It was firm. "You've slandered my name. You've violated banking protocol. You've taken my card, refused service, and humiliated me in front of this entire lobby." Ryan's grip loosened. He stepped back, uncertainty clouding his face. I just followed orders," he muttered. "You put your hands on me," Marcus replied. "You physically pushed a client?" Mia stood beside him, trembling but fierce. "I've submitted an internal ethics report," she told Pamela. "They'll get it today, and this time, someone will read it." Pamela let out a bitter laugh. "Your career's over the moment this ends. You're siding with a scammer." Mia turned to the crowd. "He's not a scammer. He's a valued client. And even if he wasn't, you don't treat anyone like this." Olivia nodded fiercely. "She's right. This is systemic abuse. And it stops today." Suddenly, a line formed, not at the teller counter, but between Marcus and the exit. 5 customers, including Olivia and Ethan, stepped forward and blocked Ryan's path. One man crossed his arms. "No one is dragging this man out of here," he said. Another added, "If he leaves, we all leave." A woman in heels pulled out her phone. "I'm emailing the state banking." Marcus stepped forward again, the crowd still forming a protective ring around him. "You have one last chance," he said to Pamela, "to walk this back, to apologize, to admit you were wrong." Pamela crossed her arms. "I'd rather be fired than apologize to someone who walked in here thinking he could manipulate us." Marcus looked at her, then at Sarah, then Ryan, then finally at Mia. "You're not the only ones being recorded," he said. "You're being documented, logged, witnessed." He raised his phone. "And this branch is being reviewed at the highest level." Pamela laughed again. "By who? Corporate's not watching this." And that's when the large twist hit. Olivia turned her camera directly on Marcus and asked, "Sir, who are you?" The room fell silent again. For a moment, Marcus didn't answer. Then he simply said, "You'll find out very soon." Mia's eyes widened. She had suspected, but now it was clear. This man wasn't just another client. Pamela squinted. "What's your name?" she demanded. Marcus didn't flinch. "You already heard it," he said, nodding toward Ethan. "You just didn't listen." And the crowd gasped again. Someone whispered, "He's Marcus Tate." Another, "The CEO?" Olivia dropped her phone for a moment. "No way, that can't be." And then Ethan, still holding the live stream, said aloud, "Wait a minute. Marcus Tate, the owner of Apex Bank?" The silence that followed was deafening. Pamela's jaw went slack. Ryan stepped back like he'd just touched fire. Sarah staggered toward the drawer and fumbled for the key. "No," she whispered. "This is a setup." Mia exhaled sharply, tears rising in her eyes, not of sadness, but of vindication. Olivia turned her phone to the crowd and said, "You're watching the moment a bank branch tried to expel its own owner, for looking like he didn't belong." Marcus looked around the room, not with arrogance, but with something deeper, a kind of grief. "This wasn't supposed to happen again," he said softly. "Not here, not in my bank. And now, I'll turn it to you watching this. What would you have done if you were standing in that branch at that very moment? Would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have stood between Marcus and the people trying to erase him? Leave your answer in the comments, and let the world know. Silence helps no one. The air inside the Apex Bank lobby had turned electric, dense, volatile, and moments from combustion. Pamela's confidence was cracking, but she wasn't done. "This is an impersonation scheme," she yelled, desperate now, her voice thin and frantic. "He's not who he says he is. Do not listen to this man." She turned to Ryan with a jerking nod. "Push him out, now!" Ryan didn't move. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, but Pamela barked again, louder this time. "Move him!" And Ryan obeyed. His jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists, and he lunged forward, harder than before, slamming his forearm into Marcus's chest and driving him back toward the entrance. The room gasped. A ripple of voices surged in protest. Chairs screeched. Phones lifted. "Hey, get your hands off him!" someone shouted from near the front desk. But the damage was already done. Marcus stumbled back, colliding with the glass door, breath catching in his throat. Mia ran forward instantly, shielding him, hands outstretched. "Stop it!" she cried. "He's your CEO!" Her voice cracked, but it carried. For a split second, the entire room froze. Ryan's hand dropped. Sarah stood still, frozen in disbelief. Pamela's lips parted. "What did you say?" she whispered. Mia turned slowly to face her boss. "You heard me. That's Marcus Tate, the owner of Apex Bank. The man whose card you locked away like stolen property. The man you tried to shove out of his own branch." Olivia's camera was trembling now, not from her hands, but from the sheer energy surging through the room. Ethan muttered, "Oh my God!" into the live stream. "It's real. She just said it. She confirmed it." And the lobby erupted. Customers began shouting, not in confusion anymore, but in rage. "He's the CEO? You tried to assault your own CEO?" one man yelled. "You need to be arrested," said another. A young woman in a green blazer stepped between Marcus and Ryan and held up her phone like a shield. "You're not touching him again." Two more customers flanked her. A line was forming, not just symbolic, but physical. A barrier of ordinary people, angry and ashamed to have witnessed what they just had. Pamela tried to reclaim authority. "Everyone calm down, you're disrupting operations." But she couldn't finish, because a voice cut through the lobby. Lena's voice, still on the open call with Marcus. "Marcus," she said, "we've activated the incident log. Everything is being recorded, time-stamped, and preserved. We have the footage. You have board authorization to proceed." Marcus didn't move. Not yet. He looked around the room, at the customers, at Mia, at the faces staring back at him, not with pity, but with fire. This was no longer just about him. This was a reckoning. Slowly, deliberately. He stepped away from the door, toward Pamela. "You pushed me once," he said softly. "Then twice. You had every chance to de-escalate, and instead you doubled down. You used that speaker to humiliate me. You ignored protocol. You weaponized race. And now you're going to face the consequences." Pamela looked like she'd been struck. "You're bluffing," she stammered. "You wouldn't come in here dressed like that. You wouldn't pretend." Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't pretend. I came as a customer. I came because I wanted to believe this branch had changed. But it hasn't. You're still who you've always been. Just bolder now, because you thought you were safe." He turned to Ryan, who had taken several slow steps back toward the teller line. "You shoved me twice. You escalated without checking a single fact." Ryan's lips parted, but no sound came out. He looked at Sarah for support. She turned away. "This is serious," she mumbled. staring at the floor. We didn't know. Marcus turned to the crowd. That's always the excuse, isn't it? We didn't know. That I was a CEO. That I was wealthy. That I had the right to be here. His voice rose, not with anger, but with gravity. But the truth is, you didn't care. Because what you thought you saw was a man who didn't belong, Olivia said aloud. That's the part that hurts the most, Ethan added. He shouldn't have to be a CEO to be treated like a person. Pamela was sweating now. You can't fire us, she snapped, though her voice had lost all its venom. You have to go through process. Protocol. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed again. David, he said, I need you on the line. Seconds later, a second voice joined. David Ellison, board member at Apex Financial Group. Marcus, he said, we're monitoring the feed. You're clear to act. Board has voted to support full executive authority under your discretion. Pamela blinked rapidly. What does that mean? Marcus didn't answer her directly. He stepped beside Mia and looked her in the eye. You've been brave today, and principled. You're the kind of leader this bank needs. Then, turning to Lena over the phone, he said, begin processing staff terminations for Apex Seattle branch. Pamela Reed, Ryan Holt, Sarah Klein, effective immediately. Lena's voice was calm but firm. Confirmed. Processing now. Digital access revoked. HR has been alerted. Gasps swept through the room. Sarah actually staggered back against the counter. You can't do this, she said. This is insane. Mia stepped forward. No, it's justice. And then came the very large twist. Ryan, pale and shaking, looked directly at Marcus. There's something you need to know, he said. Pamela told us not to serve certain customers. She had a list. She said to delay service for anyone who looked off. The room fell silent again. Pamela's face went white. That's a lie, she shouted. He's trying to save himself. But Ryan shook his head. It's not. It's all true. She said the bank didn't need those kinds of accounts. She said if they got upset, just stall. Then call escalation. Olivia gasped. You had a playbook for discrimination? Ethan's voice trembled. This is bigger than just one day. Marcus stepped forward slowly. Thank you. Ryan, he said, voice icy. You still lose your job, but your honesty might keep you out of court, Pamela screamed. This isn't fair, you can't believe him. But the crowd already had. A woman near the door shouted, We knew this place was toxic. Another man added, He's exposing it in real time. We're watching justice happen. Lena's voice returned. Media has picked up Olivia's video. It's spreading fast. And Marcus, standing in the center of that lobby, didn't look smug. He looked tired, but resolute. This isn't about revenge, he said to everyone listening. This is about integrity. No one should be treated the way I was treated today. Not me, not anyone. And starting now. Apex Bank is changing. Customers broke into applause, not thunderous, but steady, respectful, earned. Marcus turned to the remaining tellers. If you've been silent until now, that silence won't protect you much longer. Make your choice. And with that, the tide fully turned. The branch wasn't a bank anymore. It had become a courtroom. The jury was the public. The sentence had already begun. Pamela Reed was still stammering denials when Marcus stepped fully into the center of the lobby, his plain white t-shirt now seeming like the sharpest suit in the room. There was no podium, no microphone, yet his voice cut through the glass and marble like a court ruling. I am Marcus Tate, he said, calm and unmistakable. Chief Executive Officer of Apex Financial Group, 35% shareholder, owner of this building, this branch, and the chair you're standing behind. Pamela, The silence was total. Even the clack of a pen dropping at teller station 3 rang like thunder. Customers stood motionless. Sarah froze like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Ryan's jaw dropped. Pamela's face turned ashen, but she still tried to speak. This is not possible. You tricked us. You came in. Marcus raised a hand, not to silence her, but to spare the lobby from another second of her excuses. I came in the same way every customer comes in, he said. Unarmed, unescorted, dressed in ordinary clothes, hoping to be treated with the same basic dignity you'd give a stranger. What I got was suspicion, contempt, and then violence. And I want every person in this building to remember that, because it ends now. His phone remained in his hand, still connected to Lena, still recording. Lena, he said evenly, you may now proceed. Her voice, cool and exact, echoed back through the speaker. Pamela Reed, branch manager, Ryan Holt, teller, Sarah Klein, teller. Your terminations are being processed effective immediately under CEO Emergency Authority. Section 9C, digital credentials deactivated, HR notified, regional security notified. Pamela lurched forward, as if to protest, but her monitor blinked black behind her. Her access revoked in real time. This is illegal, she cried. You didn't give notice. There's no investigation. Marcus turned to her. You ran the investigation yourself the moment you chose to profile me. You conducted the trial when you humiliated me over a speaker. And you executed the sentence when you tried to physically eject me from a bank I own. You just didn't know I was watching. Ryan didn't say a word. He lowered his head, hands clasped like a child about to be punished. Sarah, still guarding the drawer that held Marcus's confiscated card, unlocked it with shaking fingers and placed the card on the counter. She didn't speak. She didn't apologize. Her silence was soaked in guilt. But Marcus didn't look at her. His eyes had moved to Mia, who was standing still, tears just beginning to pool at the edges of her eyes. Mia Brooks, Marcus said. You're being promoted effective immediately. Corporate services will follow up. Your courage, your humanity, didn't go unnoticed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Olivia mouthed, Yes, and Ethan caught it all on camera. Mia blinked, stunned. Sir, I didn't do it for recognition, she whispered. I did it because it was right. Marcus gave the smallest nod. That's exactly why you're being recognized. He turned back to the lobby at large, his voice rising, not in volume, but in weight. Let this serve as a line in the sand. Apex Bank is undergoing reform. Starting today, any employee caught ignoring bias complaints, engaging in microaggressions, withholding service based on appearance, or covering for others who do, will be removed. No suspensions, no retraining seminars. Removed. If you cannot see all customers as equals, then you do not belong here. The tension in the air didn't break. It shifted. What had been outrage was now awe. Marcus wasn't angry anymore. He was rebuilding, in real time. Pamela, desperate, still tried to salvage her footing. This is a disaster. You'll lose half your staff. Marcus turned to her, eyes sharp. I'd rather lose staff than lose our soul. And then came the huge twist. Ryan took a step forward. He was still trembling, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from release. Mr. Tate, he began, not daring to meet Marcus's eyes. I need to say something. On the record. The room hushed again. Marcus gave a nod. Speak. Ryan cleared his throat. And for the first time since the morning began, his voice sounded human. Pamela instructed us to delay service for certain customers. She didn't call it profiling, but we knew. She'd say things like, make them wait. See if they're serious. If they don't dress right. They don't bank right. And she told us to tag accounts for review if they looked suspicious, which meant anyone who didn't look like the investors she was used to seeing. Pamela gasped. "You coward!" she screamed. "You agreed with me. You said the same things." Ryan nodded. "And I regret every one of them, but I'm not letting you lie anymore. You made it policy." Marcus didn't react immediately. He let the silence absorb Ryan's confession. A few customers whispered to each other. One woman muttered, "This explains everything I went through here last month." Another nodded. "They lost my check for 3 days." Marcus spoke slowly. "Thank you. Ryan, your confession doesn't erase what you did, but it reveals what was hidden. That's something." Ryan's eyes dropped. Pamela looked like she might scream or cry or collapse. She settled for none of the above. She simply turned and walked toward the back door, only to find it locked, access revoked. Sarah stood there too, ashen, saying nothing. The door wouldn't open for any of them anymore. They weren't part of Apex. Not anymore. Then Lena's voice returned. "Marcus, update from PR. Olivia's video has reached 200,000 views in under 20 minutes. It's been picked up by Seattle Daily, Northwest Consumer Rights, and a financial equity watchdog group. We're in the headlines." Marcus nodded. "Let them watch. Let them see what accountability looks like." He turned to the lobby, to the stunned customers, to the tellers still at their stations, hands off their keyboards. "This isn't just a message to Apex Bank. This is a message to every institution that thinks silence protects power. That shaming someone in public based on skin, clothing, or zip code is just standard procedure. Those days are over." He walked to the counter, picked up his card, and placed it into his wallet. He didn't demand service. He didn't reclaim the million. He didn't need to. His presence had already transformed the space, not through rage, but through reform. "We will rebuild from here," he said, "but not with the same foundation. That foundation just cracked wide open." Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "Sarah Klein is banned from any future rehire at Apex or any of its partners. Her file will reflect this incident in full." Sarah looked like she'd been slapped. "You can't do that," she whispered. Marcus met her eyes. "I just did." And in that moment, the balance of power in the room shifted for good. The applause that had erupted after Marcus fired the branch staff faded into a heavy, expectant hush. Like the moment before a verdict is read, no one moved. Marcus remained standing in the center of the lobby, his tone now even, deliberate, measured. "Effective immediately," he said. "This branch is under operational lockdown. No further transactions will be processed today. All appointments canceled. The only business being conducted here right now is justice." Behind him, Lena's voice echoed through his phone again. "Operations paused. Access to internal systems limited to CEO and designated personnel. Reform template deployed to Apex Seattle branch." Then came David Ellison, the board member, chiming in on the second line. "Marcus, media's now reporting live. I've authorized the PR response. You're cleared to proceed with structural reform." Marcus didn't look rattled. In fact, he looked calmer than he had all morning. "This isn't about punishing a few people," he said, turning slowly to face the stunned tellers still at their stations. "This is about restoring integrity. We cannot afford to leave this culture intact, not even in the corners." He turned to Mia. "You'll be working with corporate compliance directly. Starting today, I want a full review of every discrimination complaint logged here since 2020. No file stays buried." Mia nodded, stunned but steady. "I'll handle it." Customers broke into murmurs of approval, some filming again, others whispering their support. But the moment of resolution was short-lived, because what came next ripped open something far deeper. as Marcus approached the teller line. Sarah gone. Pamela locked out. Ryan silent. One of the remaining employees, a teller no older than 23, raised a hesitant hand. "Sir, I think you should know something." Marcus turned to him. "Speak freely." The young man glanced nervously around the room, then back to Marcus. "Last fall, Pamela had a policy. She called it selective screening. It wasn't on paper, but she told us, verbally, that certain clients should be treated with extra scrutiny. She never said it directly, but we all understood who she meant." The room stilled again. Ethan lowered his phone just slightly, his eyes widening. Marcus said nothing, only waited. The teller continued. "There were at least 3 written complaints from customers who said they felt racially profiled. One was a black business owner who came in to deposit revenue. The other 2 were Latino and Filipino clients. Pamela told us to delay their transactions, then later told Ryan to remove their names from the follow-up queue." Marcus's stare shifted sharply toward Ryan. "Is that true?" Ryan hesitated, but the moment had passed for hesitation. "It is," he admitted quietly. "We didn't log the complaints. We shredded them." Several customers gasped. "You destroyed formal complaints of discrimination?" Marcus's voice was still steady, but cold now, steel wrapped in silk. "On whose order?" Ryan swallowed hard. "Pamela's. Always Pamela's," Olivia muttered. "This wasn't just bias. This was a cover-up." Ethan nodded. "This is a civil rights violation in a suit and tie." Marcus stood straighter. "Lena," he said, "I want every branch's complaint logs for the last 24 months cross-referenced with staffing records and executive overrides. If there's a pattern, find it." Lena's answer was immediate. "Already in motion. Compliance is escalating it." The weight of the moment settled over the room again. But this time, it wasn't just the people inside the bank who were listening. The phones in customers' hands were streaming, posting, sharing everything, not for clout, but for truth, for exposure, for justice. Marcus looked around and saw it in their faces. Black, white, brown, young, elderly, each of them seeing a piece of themselves in what had just happened. And he wasn't finished. "This was never just about a $1 million withdrawal," he said softly. "It was about something far more valuable. Accountability, decency, fairness." He turned to David over the phone. "We're not just firing people anymore. We're restructuring from the inside. New training, new accountability teams, an internal whistleblower fund, and every complaint, every last one, will be seen." David replied without pause. "You have full board backing. The message is clear. Bias isn't just bad optics, it's bad banking." Marcus nodded once. "Then let's build a new foundation." 3 days after the incident at Apex Bank's downtown Seattle branch, the video had passed 9 million views. Every major outlet had run it. Headlines used phrases like "CEO profiled in his own bank" and "justice in real time." But Marcus Tate didn't do a single interview. He didn't sit for a morning show. He didn't post a statement on X. He went back to work, quietly, strategically. And by the end of the week, 5 more Apex branches had entered internal review for complaint suppression. Over 24 employees had been removed, not as scapegoats, but as part of a methodical, evidence-based house cleaning. Marcus never raised his voice. He never called it a purge. He called it realignment. And in that realignment, Mia Brooks became more than a promoted teller. She became the face of Apex's newly formed Equity Integrity Team, a rotating group of frontline employees empowered to review, report, and correct bias incidents from the inside out. She stood up. Marcus had said simply at the press conference he finally gave 2 weeks later. "When standing up came with risk, that's the culture we're building." But not everyone applauded. There were protests. Some calling the firings hasty, others saying Marcus was weaponizing race, but the facts were solid, the patterns undeniable, the stories real. Marcus let the policies speak for themselves. And in doing so, he created not just a headline, but a blueprint for institutional self-correction. And yet, beneath the reforms, beneath the headlines, beneath the applause and backlash, something deeper remained unresolved until the final twist emerged. It came not from Ryan, not from Sarah, not even from Pamela. It came from an anonymous tip sent to Lena's office 3 weeks later, a former regional manager, now retired, who admitted that Pamela's pattern of discrimination had been known for years, but never acted on. Why? Because, as the tipster wrote, she kept minority accounts low risk. They didn't ask for loans. They deposited. They rarely challenged her decisions. She kept the branch numbers stable by managing out high-contact clients. No one wanted to rock the boat. The revelation sent a deeper chill through Marcus's office than anything that had happened in that lobby. It wasn't just one bad manager. It was a tolerated system. A quiet, complicit culture where discrimination wasn't shouted. It was baked in. Denials made with smiles. Bias hidden beneath spreadsheets. Marcus closed his office door and read the email twice. Then he called Lena. "We're going national," he said. "Not just internal reform. We're launching the Diversity Access Index. I want every Apex bank scored, not by profit, but by trust." Lena paused on the line. "That changes everything," she said. "Exactly," Marcus replied. 3 months later, that change became visible, quietly, but powerfully. Branches began holding community listening sessions. All teller training was overhauled. Equity officers were assigned to every region. A new scholarship fund, quietly backed by Marcus himself, began offering grants to first-generation finance students from underserved neighborhoods. And at the heart of it all, Marcus remained still, focused. Not the viral CEO, just a man cleaning his house, starting with the lobby floor he had once been shoved across in front of strangers. And what about that branch on 5th Avenue? It didn't close. It transformed. New faces, new leadership. A wall of customer testimonials filled the space where the teller line had once stood. And at its center, under soft lighting, a plaque read, "This branch changed not because it had to, but because one man reminded us all that silence has a cost." And now, if you've followed this story to the end, I'll ask you just one question, not for clicks, not for comments, for reflection. Have you ever been treated like you didn't belong, only to later realize you were the one holding the key? If so, this story was for you. And if not, remember this. True leadership isn't about power. It's about presence. Marcus didn't lead by raising his voice. He led by refusing to lower his standards. So the next time someone underestimates you, let them, and then show them who's really signing the paycheck.